Hello and welcome to Intuitive Journey with Desiree. I'm Desiree Holmes Scherini, your host. And today I am happy to have a guest. It is Julie Ryan, very fascinating lady. And as usual, I'm going to use my cheat sheet so that I can get it all right. So, one of these days I'll wear my glasses for this. Julie Ryan's journey proves that intuitive and healing abilities aren't just gifts, they're skills anyone can learn. A successful inventor and a serial entrepreneur, Julie mastered the art of medical intuition, spirit communication, and energy healing more than 25 years ago, blending business acumen with extraordinary spiritual insights. Today, she's known as a buffet of psychicness, able to scan the human body, detect illnesses, facilitate energetic healings, access past lives, and communicate with spirits, both living and deceased, all from a distance. Julie turns her intuitive abilities on and off at will, practicing only with permission and maintaining strict confidentiality out of deep ethical respect. In addition to her intuitive work, Julie's 35-year business career included founding 9 companies across 5 industries and inventing globally distributed surgical devices. She's also the host of the hit podcast Ask Julie Ryan, streamed in over 100 countries, where she scans callers live each week and shares insights that bridge the practical and the mystical. Above all, Julie is a wife, mother, grandmother, and friend, proof that it's possible to live fully grounded in both the spiritual and the real world. And I also want to share that she is offering all the listeners a free book that you can access. You'll find the details there. She's holding it up right there. Angelic Attendants. So you can get a taste of her treasures that she's offering so much. Anyway, so welcome, Julie, and I apologize for the long intro, but there's so much. I didn't want to leave any of it out.
Oh, you sweet
So
thing. Thank you so much. I always feel like a game show hostess when I hold my book up. It's like, yes. Can you
here, I'll
remember
do it this direct way.
Carol Merrill from The Price is Right? Come on down. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there,
So
there we
thank
go.
you. Thank you so much for having me. What a delight to be with you.
I'm delighted to have you. And when I looked at your bio, I was just so excited because, like I said, when it just got on, that we just have so many interests and experiences and rabbit holes in common. So I can't wait to have this conversation with you. And so I'll start. Let me ask first, how did you go, was there like at some point that you were just a normal person? And what was your journey? How did you discover your gifts? How did you move into where you are now?
Well, as you mentioned in my bio, I'm a businesswoman and an inventor who learned how to do woo woo, and I'm a buffet of psychicness. So that's the key is I
Okay.
learned how to do all this stuff, Desiree. I didn't have dead people chasing me as a child. Or if they were, I didn't know about it, let alone what I would have done with that information. And more than 30 years ago, I had a friend give me a book called Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mays.
Mhm.
And she called herself a medical intuitive. And I thought, well, what the heck is that? I'd never heard that term before. And at that point, I had been in the hospital supply industry for about 10 years. And I was an inventor of surgical devices and then eventually a manufacturer of them, sold globally. 30 years. Some of them have been on the market 30 years and they're still being sold around the world. And I wanted to know more about this medical intuitive thing because I was helping people heal, but in a traditional way through the surgeons and the other medical providers in a hospital, helping patients heal. And back then, we didn't have the internet yet. So I went to a bookstore. I went to a Barnes and Noble bookstore to see what I could find. I thought, well, they'd be more likely to have something, perhaps even more so than my local library.
Mhm.
And I found a book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan, who's a former NASA physicist who parlayed very complex quantum physics concepts and principles into understandable English for the non scientific mind. That would be me. And she talked about how to use energy frequencies to help people heal. And that really captured my imagination as well. And I called her school, which on the time was on Long Island in New York. And I said, "You guys got anybody teaching this stuff in my area?" And sure enough, they had a graduate who had just opened a school where I was. And I studied with her for 6 years.
Oh,
And now fast forward, I teach this energy healing. And once you connect with spirit, you can do it all. I'm
hmm.
not sure why it's so siloed. You got the psychics and the mediums and the pet
Yes.
psychics and the healers and the NDEers. And it's like you connect with spirit, you can do it all. I'm not sure why it's siloed. And that's what I teach. And so we condense it into a weekend now with people from all over the world, both online and in person. And it's been really a remarkable journey. When I first started studying this stuff, my friends and family said, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "Oh, I
What?
have no idea." And they said, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" I said, "Again, no clue." And here I am all these years later, and I love it.
That's fantastic. And it's, it, as you say, it's true. People, it's getting better. I think that more people are recognizing, the idea of energy and frequency
Mhm.
and our our ability, our connection with all of that,
Mhm.
uh, especially with the advent now, or the public advent of quantum physics being something that the scientists are now talking about and writing papers on and doing research, and actually it's being shared out there with the public. So it's great now that there will be, instead of like people, oh, that's weird, that's made up, that's woo woo, that's witch stuff, right? And we get it all. But I think it's fantastic that you're riding that wave and sharing that with other people. So in your in your classes, like how long do those last? What would a protocol be?
Over the weekend, we'll do it over the weekend. My buffet of psychicness class where they learn to do everything. And it's a Saturday and a Sunday. And I do one online in May in the spring, and then I do one in person in Atlanta in October. It's always the weekend before Halloween. And we just did it just in the last month ago. And we had people from 4 countries. We rent out a hotel that's adjacent to the Atlanta airport. It's really a production and it's so much fun
That's
to
great.
all be together. And back to your point, Desiree, about the medical stuff. We've been doing this for forever, and people just don't realize it. You think about an EKG or an EEG. EKGs are heart rhythms. And what are they doing? They've got electrodes outside of the body and they're picking up the energy of the heartbeats.
Mhm.
EEG is they're picking up the energy of the brain outside of the body. The lithotripsy machine busts up kidney stones by submerging somebody into water, and it's the sound waves that
Mhm.
do it. Furthermore, we're all healers, we're all intuitive. We've all had times in our lives where we think of somebody and we either run into them or we get an email from them or a text or a phone call and we say, "Oh my gosh, I was just thinking of you. What a coincidence." Well, there's
Yeah.
no coincidence there,
Uh-uh.
number one. And we've all been healers in our lives because most of us at some point have comforted a child who's skinned their knee, and we put them on our lap and snuggle them and kiss on them and kiss their boo
Mhm.
boo and send them off to play again. And they're fine. What are you doing? You're being a healer when that happens. So we all do it. It's just a matter of developing and enhancing it.
I think you're absolutely right. I've, kind of had that connection light bulb, some while ago, of what naturally we do when we're hurt or comforting someone.
Mhm.
And are you familiar with the practice of havening?
No, I haven't heard of it. What is it?
So um, it's a like a touch therapy,
Mm.
and basically you have somebody focus on some traumatic event, right? Whatever it is that's still like PTSDing them, and they have trauma with or difficulty, or and you do this thing. And even if you do it yourself, you'll notice that you just get these goosebumps and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And you go down their arms or down their face, and it releases the tie somehow energetically, almost like if you do acupuncture, almost like triggering those points. But that said, it's a practice. But when you've hurt yourself, or when you're comforting somebody, how you might just be doing this to them,
Mhm.
and
Like
or
petting them like a dog.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
or you kiss, like you say, you kiss, and there's that touch. Or for yourself, when you've hurt something, you go, oh, that hurts, and you sort of rub it away. And often when you do that, you don't end up with a bruise. It's really
Mhm.
kind of magical. You're like, oh yeah, that helped. That it didn't end up bruising. And or and people wring their hands. The story of somebody wringing their hands when they're upset. It's a natural instinct to be, holding your own hand, or rubbing your hands, and in when you're afraid or tense. And I'm like, wow. So it's a natural thing we do, like you say. But people, if you were to tell them, oh, there's this thing called havening, or touch therapy, or energy healing, they
Yeah.
go, right, you're crazy, right?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. And there's so much in Western and Eastern medicine that we don't know. We don't know how it works. We know that if we have a cut, it heals, but we don't watch a cell connect to another cell and form the epidermis and then form the
Mhm.
dermis and all of that, but we know that it works. And it's interesting to your point earlier, though, Desiree, that that terminology is starting to come into the zeitgeist, and people are becoming more aware of it. And I love it when science catches up to woo-woo, because woo-woo's been around a whole lot longer. And woo in Taoism means source.
I love
So
that.
people think woo woo is just kind of a crazy name. It will elicit usually a giggle or a chuckle, which is why
Mhm.
I use it because I think it's fun and it lightens the mood. But it really has a very serious connotation when you think woo is source, because that's all this is. It's source working through us and with us to help other people, whether we're helping them heal emotionally because we're talking to a deceased loved one, or we're helping them heal physically, or heal again emotionally because we figure out past life information, or we're talking to their cat who seems to be distressed. What's wrong with the cat? It's all about healing, and it's all about helping people live more joyful lives of purpose.
So you brought up the uh, I would say mediumship, or communicating with those passed on in past lives. So what has your experience been? What was the first time, maybe even, that and was there a practice that you did, or did something just come to you when you first communicated with someone passed on?
Oh no, I learned how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I wasn't talking to dead people before I started taking these classes. But what I've found is that our heads are like big satellite dishes, and they receive and they transmit frequencies. Every spirit has a frequency they keep throughout all of their lifetimes. And in order to get in touch with anyone, whether you knew them or not is irrelevant. Whether they're spirits in heaven or attached to a body is also irrelevant. Just think of them. That tunes your satellite dish head to their frequency. And then
Mm-hmm.
it opens up something similar to a two-way radio communication. And you say something either aloud or in your head. It can be a statement or a question. And then they're going to answer you. And how you know that it's spirit answering you, it's the first thing,
Yeah.
fast as you can snap your finger, that comes into your head. And sometimes it happens where their response will come in before you've even finished thinking the
Yeah.
thought. And that trips people up. People say, well, that's my imagination because I didn't even finish the thought yet. Well, what's happening is there's no time in the spirit world, time's a human creation. So they already have your question or your statement and they're responding to you. And everybody can do it. We all do it now. We're just not aware that we're doing it.
Well, it's one of the things that I do actually, offer and work with clients with sometimes.
Uh-huh.
And so you're right. I was, curious about if you had a way, a method or something. With me, um, like you say, I will just generally sit quietly, and just see what comes. And I'll usually, it's easier sometimes for me to just write down whatever's coming in because somehow it bypasses me critically deciphering or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And what you talk about, sometimes they know the answer before you. One of the things that has happened, and I studied with somebody as well, and I had a client ask me to communicate with her mom and family members, and so I got all this information. I got about some like twin sisters, physical descriptions, all sorts of stuff. I presented to her because she asked me, and then I got on with her after I, got my whatever download. And she's like, no, 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 that's not my family. And I'm like, oh. And then while I was on her, then her family came through. Okay. And I, was able to be sure that was like her mom had pink flowered wallpaper in her room. She goes, yeah. And I'm like, got some specifics like, okay, now I got your family. And I'm like, why did I get a completely different family? Who are these people? And I asked the guy I trained with, and he says, oh, he goes, just hang on to that. Sometimes uh, an opening, like you say, there's no time. Somebody will see you open and they'll jump in there for you for a message. And this message may be for someone who hasn't come to you yet. And it'll come back. I'll say, wait a minute, are you the one with the twin sisters? It hasn't happened yet. I'm waiting.
I
But
get I get on that, Desiree, that it was an ancestor of hers. It was her family, but it was an ancestor of hers. And I'll bet if she goes back, if she sees this and she goes back and she looks at the family lineage, all the information that you downloaded that you gave to her will pertain to somebody from a different
possible.
generation.
It's possible. But I thought, okay, I'll wait and see if that's like my next,
Yeah,
querent
interesting.
coming in. How about past lives? How do you see other people's past lives? Is that sort of the same sort of psychic, you know, uh,
Mhm.
vision, I guess you would say? Um, and how do you describe that to them? How do you work with people like that?
Well, as an entrepreneur, of course, I have to have my own way of doing things.
Okay.
You tell me
Yeah.
you have to do it this way, I'm going to go, probably not.
Huh?
So, as an inventor and an entrepreneur, I'm always thinking of other more efficient ways to do things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'm better off just not reinventing the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
How I do past lives is I don't do regressions or hypnotism. I
Mm-hmm.
envision myself in this endless hallway, very narrow walls, very tall ceilings. The walls are lined with 12-inch by 12-inch mirrors, perfectly positioned in vertical and horizontal columns. I mean, perfect lined up. It would be hard to get it that exact. And each mirror represents a different lifetime. So we'll come up with a question like Desiree wants to know if she was a medium or a psychic in a past life. And so the mirrors that pertain to those lifetimes that answer the question will come out from the wall as if they're on a hydraulic arm. And then I'll envision and I'll say, show me the one that correlates the most with Desiree's current life. And that one will come out the farthest. And then I'll see myself jogging down the hallway or whatever. And then if it's a mirror that's up high, there will just miraculously be a forklift that shows up in the hallway. And I'll get in it and it'll put me up. And then I'll envision walking into the mirror. And it's as if I'm walking into the scene of a movie. And we'll get where it was, when it was, what was going on. And oftentimes we get information that we can corroborate and validate with historic
Mhm.
documentation online, which is so fun
Isn't that
when
cool?
that happens. Don't you always think, you just can't make this stuff up? I mean, it's just too random. And then we'll correlate it with what's going on in the person's current life. It's been my experience that there will be a semblance of a script that will repeat throughout
Mm,
multiple lifetimes. And we live many scripts. There are many things we come in to explore and experience. And there will be kind of like an overall arching theme. Let's say you want to be a teacher. Well, maybe you were a teacher in a classroom to high schoolers. Maybe in another life, you were a teacher in a corporation. Maybe you were a teacher as a parent. I mean, lots of different roles in the same script. It's
mhm.
always fascinating. Past lives are one of the most fun things I get to
Okay.
do.
Really fascinating, and they can be so healing too. If somebody
Exactly.
looking to say where this issue,
Right.
originated. Uh,
Right.
and so, I, on the other hand, as a hypnotherapist, I I let them do the traveling
Right.
and just kind of drive their car where they help guide them. But it is fascinating work, and I love, like you say, part of part of it is always trying to ask them, what's your name? What's your last name? What town are you in? What year is it?
Mhm.
And as you mentioned, so many people have been able to go back, including myself, when I've had it done for me, go back and find this address exists. This house that you saw exists. These
Yeah.
people were real.
Right.
And um and these people were you, which is weirder, right?
No. And then
It's not like these
it
people.
gets
It's like, oh, I
it
was.
gets really
Mhm.
makes my mind want to explode when I think about multiple lifetimes happening concurrently. And I think, how does that work? And I keep hearing from spirit that it's true. And so I just go, okay, is it feasible? Yeah. Do I understand it completely? No. Will I when I get back to heaven? Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
where I go because I don't think we're supposed to understand a lot of this stuff.
I think, you wonder where, really heavy duty schizophrenia comes from. That may be part of it, that
Maybe.
they don't have this, uh, their veil is lifted completely and they are in all sorts of worlds at once.
Right.
Um, I don't know, but I think it would be overwhelming for our human experience
Mhm.
to really walk around on a daily basis knowing all of that. And I wanted to comment, one of the things that I've, trying to make sense of this time and lives and, coexistence. If you take a timeline, this is what I do in my brain. If you take a timeline into the past and into the future, right? And just turn it on its end. And I picture everything stacked.
Mm.
It helps me think, yeah, if if you can go up or down in time, it's all at one time. It's
Mhm.
all on one point. And instead of back and forward, you can picture it's up and down, but it's also just right on that same point in time still.
Mhm.
So that's my little brain way of trying to explain it. Um,
I have one too
okay,
that
tell me.
helps me, and that's when a movie or a TV show is filmed.
Mhm.
Let's say Wizard of Oz was filmed in the 1930s, I think, and Wizard of Oz is playing at some point on the planet pretty much all the time.
Mhm.
So it was live in the 1930s and it's still live today each time it's being played. So I think, okay, so that was something that happened many years ago, almost 100 years ago, and I can still live it right now by watching it. I don't know if that makes sense, but kind of satisfies me a little bit along those lines.
And you know, like we could go down this rabbit hole really deep, which would be fun. But the the idea of, like, say, materialization or manifestation, that everything, as an inventor, you might appreciate this, that everything that we experience, including ourselves, I believe, as there is some creator that decided to create human, um, it just existed in thought at
Oh,
some,
yeah. Right.
in the non-material realm, in the ether, in the energetic, formless soup that is, right?
Hmm.
And when people say, oh, well, that's made up, but at some point somebody had a thought. And now we're surrounded by those thoughts in material form.
Hmm.
Somebody thought of a computer.
Hmm.
Somebody thought of the top I'm wearing or this necklace.
Hmm.
It didn't always exist,
Right.
but somewhere the fuel for its existence was there, like the little atoms or energetic sparks
Mm.
were not formed and brought into existence. So as far back as ever, things have existed, just not necessarily materially. And then even as they say, like dust to dust, right? At some point when they're gone, they still exist. It's just because the idea never goes away.
Hmm.
And the source for the idea is somehow eternally there. We just have to, you know, grab it. And as an inventor, you've probably heard how sometimes an invention has come about spontaneously by different people coming up with the same thing at across the world. Like the telephone, I think was like that. Some other things, and I just believe there are these things out there in the ether that we may or may not, open up and access to. Which leads me to asking you about opening up and closing at will. How do you do that for yourself?
Change my attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's all attention, intention. It's a new, it's a new meaning for the acronym AI. Artificial intelligence. It's
Oh,
also
yeah.
attention, intention. And to your point earlier, too, Desiree, when you were talking about it's an idea for somebody to pull in. I have a communications degree and I'm an inventor of surgical devices. How's that work? People
Mm-hmm.
say, well, are you an engineer? Are you a nurse? Are you a doctor? And I say, no. They say, well, how did you do that? And I said, well, I can hire really good engineers. And I had the idea. And so my name's on all the patents and just brought in people who had expertise in certain areas, but it was my idea. Furthermore, it makes me laugh when I think about things being invented years ahead of time. And what comes to mind is meet George Jetson.
Oh, yeah.
You
Or
know, the
Star Trek.
Jetsons. Oh my God. The Jetsons with the robot
Yeah,
cleaning lady. You know, we got the
rotates.
Roomba with the flying
Mm-hmm.
cars. Elon Musk says he's got a
Yeah, he
prototype
says
for
that's
one.
coming out.
I know. And the TV screens and the little phones that you can see other people on and all of that. And I think, who is the script writer, of that? And they knew woo woo. They knew they were channeling that. There's
Yes.
a there's a lot of movies and TV shows where
Mm-hmm.
that goes on. And I think, okay, well, look at The Simpsons. The
Yeah. The
Simpsons,
Simpsons is like, what is this? Like,
what is
is
this?
is this
Exactly.
pre-planned and somebody's just feeding us
Exactly.
a little info, or is it really just some kind of, Gene Roddenberry with Star Trek and
Yeah. Well,
um
George Lucas. Do you think George Lucas channeled
uh,
all that stuff? Absolutely. James Cameron with the blue people. And J.K. Rowling with the Harry Potter stuff.
mm-hmm,
That's all channeled. Every artist, every lyricist, every songwriter, every author, we're all channeling all day
mm-hmm.
long. I think even regular people that haven't done any of those arty things, we're all channeling, we're all receiving information from spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and we create all day long. What are you going to have for breakfast? What are you going to wear? How are you going to get to work? It's all a creation.
Like what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Exactly.
Somebody created it. I think it was probably the egg, but yes, it's just, and I think, what we're talking about right now is important, hopefully, for people to be listening to and say, oh, think about it. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's sort of like open up the lid of the box
Hmm.
and see everything maybe in a different way than you ever have before. To
Right.
open up your own senses of, are you cutting off your creativity by poo-pooing your own ideas
Hmm.
or other people's intuitive thoughts and ideas by saying, oh, that's crazy. How about if you consider what's true and you never even realized, like I was saying, that your sofa was an idea. It didn't
Hmm.
just drop out of the sky, what off
Right.
the turnip truck, as they say, right?
Right.
That
Mhm.
everything is a potential. And there we go back to quantum physics. Everything is potentiality. And not until you observe it is it there,
Mhm.
which is just kind of like, ooh, okay. So, and you talked about intention and focus.
Mhm.
So I think I'm going to ask your thoughts on this too. I think one of the important things, as somebody who works with people to help them find better happiness, is where you put in your intention.
Mhm.
And where you put your intention starts to coalesce and come into your reality. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I had a client this morning. She said something. I said, "Can I poach that and make a reel out of it?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "Your body achieves what your mind believes." I
Yeah,
thought that's perfect. Our thoughts create our reality.
yeah.
I just happen to have the notes so I can send her a follow-up email. But I said, "Ooh, that's good. Can I use that?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, sure." So, yes, absolutely. Our thoughts create our reality. I just had it happen yesterday. We have a four-way stop coming out of our section of the neighborhood. And my husband goes to that four-way stop, and most of the time somebody will run it.
Mhm.
I've never had that happen when I'm driving, ever in 25 years. And so I
Yeah.
finally just said, "Honey, just imagine and think that, okay, everybody's going to stop when you pull up." So we were on our way to a memorial service yesterday afternoon, and guess what? Somebody ran the stop sign with him driving.
Oh.
He expects it, and it
Mhm.
happens. In 25 years, I can count on one hand the number of times people have done that. I think that's a great example of how our thoughts create our reality. And certainly we see that with healing things. We see you call it the placebo effect with the testing when a new drug is being tried. The placebo always does better than the actual drug itself.
Mhm.
Always. I think that I've read that the placebo effect is more efficient, I'll use that word, 52% of the time.
Wow. And
Yeah.
fewer side effects.
Yeah. Right.
Which is why I love what I do as a hypnotherapist. It's like
Mhm.
you just help go in the mind and help change those
Mhm.
thoughts, help
Exactly.
just change the way you're thinking. Um, and certainly there's that idea that you have these multiple realities, that you're living multiple
Mhm.
uh, realities at any given time, and the concept that, so say you are ill and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm ill, this isn't going well. And then the idea of changing, no, I'm not going to be ill. I'm healthier and healthier. That then a recovery maybe takes you onto a different timeline. And the other actually could continue, that all these possibilities are there, like that movie Sliding Doors, if you ever saw that,
I
where
haven't.
oh, you would like it. Gwyneth Paltrow. It shows two two life paths. She on one she gets on the metro or whatever, and then the other she misses that metro, and her life goes that way. And so it follows both lives just from a simple little, one little thing that changed, and how it just flows all the way into two different lives.
I'll have
Um,
to check it out.
yeah, it's fun to watch. It's an older one. Um, so I forgot. I'm rambling because, like, talking to you, I'm like, oh, yes, what about this? And what do you think of that? How about, what would you say, to the listeners about how it's just some simple ways to get your own intuition, to know when your intuition is actually talking to you?
Attention, intention. Where is your attention? Focus it. Who, if you want to talk to a loved one, if you want to talk to Elvis or Moses, it doesn't matter. You
Mhm.
just think of them. And that tunes your satellite dish head to their frequency. And then you just say something and they're going to answer you. And it's going to be that first thought in your head. And people say, well, that's just my imagination. Well, spirit uses your imagination to communicate and be open to the information that you get. I find that people, when they want to talk to a deceased loved one, oftentimes the first time they have the opportunity to do so, they're expecting some big life altering, philosophical, wonderful piece of advice that's going to totally enhance their life in every way. And their spirit loved one in spirit is coming in with something really random. My favorite story is about a woman who's a client and her mother had passed perhaps a month or two ahead of the time we were talking, and we get her on the call, and the mom's spirit from heaven. And first thing she says to her daughter is, you need to throw out your peanut butter. And
That sounds like my mother.
the daughters go, what?
Actually, the other way around. My mother, I would have to tell her to throw out the peanut butter, but go on. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, this client of mine is expecting something just earth-shattering, and profound. And mama's spirit's going, throw out your peanut butter. So I said, "Do you have peanut butter?" And she said, "Oh yeah. My kids love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's what I fix for their lunch every day." I said, "Great." And mom's spirit's saying again, tell her to throw out her peanut butter. I said, just go look at the expiration date. Just go look in your cabinet or your pantry. And she did, Desiree, and it had expired a year
Oh, yeah.
previously, and stuff can grow in there apparently. And so her mom from heaven was giving her practical advice. I over the years have heard so many comments from loved ones like, you got a leak in the plumbing of your pool. Here's where you need to bring the plumber out, and here's what he needs to look for. Or this is happening, just real basic stuff. Even you need to go get this checked, or your dog's got a thorn in its paw, and that's why it's limping, kind of like the lion in that
Yes.
Grimm's fairy tale, with the thorn in its paw. And just thousands of stories like that are so much fun.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, that's not what I wanted to hear, that the spirit's
Yeah.
giving them all this profound stuff that correlates with them. And I said, look, I can't I can't control what they say when they're
Make
alive.
something
I
up.
sure as heck can't control what they say when they're dead. They're going to be giving us information to let you know it's really them with whom we're communicating, number
Mhm.
one. Number two, they're going to be giving you information they believe is important for you to hear.
Mm.
And number three, you always want to be open to how you perceive what comes in. So somebody may say, look for the ladybug. And they'll say, well, I live in Boston. We don't have ladybugs in the winter here. It's too cold. And I say, well, you
That's
may
why
see a
they're using the
ladybug
ladybug.
in
Yeah.
an ad. You may see it on a piece of jewelry. You may see somebody that has ladybugs printed all over their shirt. Just be open to how you see it and broaden your horizons. Don't get yourself in a box
Mhm.
as far as what you're witnessing. Are you finding the same thing?
Yeah, and so many similar stories. What I've noticed is their personality,
Oh
like
yeah.
you say, is the same on the other side. And I just recently got a message for a woman who wanted to know, if her dad, who she had apparently a terrible relationship with, she goes, "Oh, he ruined my life," whatever. But if he, he's on the other side now, and what he thought. And she had written a book, and has he read my book? She wanted to know. And what does he think? And I'm like, okay. And I didn't want to tell her what I got, but I told her, I was like, I feel like he's like, you know, like his, I said, would this fit his personality? I guess I don't know, because I feel like he looked at it and just put it down and very dismissive. Um, that and I'm like, I I don't know what she was hoping for. Maybe that he could see the light now on the other
Mhm.
side, but apparently his person. I said he's very stubborn. I think he's just very stubborn that he's not going to give you, what he's still not going to do it.
Mhm.
Which was, and I don't usually, I haven't gotten that much before. Usually it's more informational, but this
Mhm.
man was just very stubborn and very stuck. Um, and but some personal stories that were funny. My mom, the day after she passed, shows up at my bedside as I'm waking up, and I won't go into the whole story, but she's doing this thing in front of some flat stones, and what I'm hearing is build me up, build me up. I'm like, what? Build me up? And there's these flat stones. A couple of days later, and I was thinking, how, what? And this is what was important to her, that she wanted to make sure that we knew. A couple of days later, we're at the cemetery picking out a spot for her. And I had shared this story with my dad and my sister about what she said. And they said, well, we have this area of plots over here, this area over here, or we have the new mausoleum. And he puts a picture of the new mausoleum in front of us. And it was a tall structure of all these flat stones. And just like I'd seen these flat stones, and and then my dad says, oh, yeah, she never wanted to be buried. And I'm like, look, there we are. So both of them are now at the top penthouse of the mausoleum together at this point. And the other personal story I have is after my sister passed away several years ago. Our whole family was together at dinner, and it's November. Like you say, about what time of year. And there's this gnat that is just circling the table, circling, and we're all like, is that gnat? And I said, oh my gosh, there's a gnat that's been bugging me. And like I said, it's winter in DC and on the East Coast here where we all live. And I said, yeah, there's just been this one gnat in my bathroom every day. And my sister said, me too. And my mother says, yes, there's a gnat, hanging around me for the last week. And then we all look at this gnat. We're like, and my sister who had passed, her nickname was Bugs.
Oh.
So we're like, it's Karen.
Oh, how
And
sweet is
because
that?
that she came, manifested in a way that we would all know it's her.
Yeah.
And so on one occasion I was in the bathroom and here comes this gnat. It'll just appear out of nowhere and disappear out of nowhere. Like
Mhm.
there's no source. There aren't other gnats. And one day I'm in my bathroom and there's this gnat, and I'm like, Karen, is that you? Like, is this you saying hello? And I said, if that's you, land on my finger. And this gnat comes and lands on my finger.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
And I was like, hi, Karen. you know, but people they will
Yeah.
send you the ladybug in the winter,
Mhm.
or try to find a way, as you're saying, to be who they are, to let them know, yeah, it's me. uh,
Mhm.
and and maybe not in the most glorious, the sun is beaming down way, maybe in a very matter of fact way of, their favorite bird will show up outside your window, favorite song will come on, multiple times, and in some sort of coincidentally, all sorts of things. So like you say, for people to be open,
Well,
ask them,
and
ask
when you
them.
have the thought, oh, that's Karen sending that to me, you're right. Don't
Mhm.
overthink it. Don't rationalize it. It's
Yeah.
that first thought that comes into your head.
Hmm.
I find too that I laugh. I say they send us on treasure hunts sometimes. When I was a kid, if I didn't know a word, I would ask my parents, well, what does that word mean? And they'd say, well, go look it up. I said, can't you just tell
Yeah.
me? Well, what they knew was that if I read it, I would be more apt to remember it instead of just hearing it. And I find that spirits are the same way. The other thing that I've been told about a bazillion times, Desiree, and I'd love to hear your take on this, is that all spirits are pure love.
Mm.
And they show up to us in a way that we're going to recognize who they are. For example, I had a client one time who she wanted to know what her dad was doing, and we got all the information of what her dad was doing. And what I've heard a lot from spirits in heaven is they have a thought and it immediately materializes, which is why they like to incarnate on earth because we have to manufacture things, we have to manifest things. And they have a thought, they can be skiing the Matterhorn in the morning, and then they have a thought
Yeah.
and they're on an African safari, and then they have a thought and they're
Uh,
salmon fishing, in Alaska or whatever. So I had this client and she said, my dad wouldn't do any of that stuff. And I said, you got to remember that was your dad's personality in the lifetime you knew him. That was a part he was playing.
mm-hmm.
Now he's answering your question if you wanted to know what he's doing, and he's answering it to you. And we've got to remember that they're super literal. Spirits are super literal. You ask them a question, they're going to answer it. And that's why you've got to be open to the interpretation, because spirit language is numbers. It's been my experience, Desiree, that all communication is in numbers from spirit. And then our heads, our brains decode those numbers into images and thoughts and comments and sentences and things like that, because numbers are the universal language. Mathematics is the universal language, including
the
with spirits.
the geometry of the universe, as it were. Yeah, and you're right. That's interesting. Yeah, as far as that, like I brought up about that one father, and it was more like that earthbound personality was
Mhm.
hanging on, very stubborn, and it wasn't the higher self of him
Well,
that
he was showing his daughter that it was really
it
his
was him.
spirit with whom you were conversing.
Hmm.
So that's what I've found, is that they will assume a role. I'm
Yeah.
using air quotes for those of you listening. He's assuming that curmudgeon, stubborn dad that she knew. Because if he said, oh, it's fabulous, and he went on and on and on, she's going to go, that's not my dad. My dad was this stubborn old curmudgeon. So he knew that enough to give her the opportunity to understand that it was really him with who we were conversing.
And that's interesting. Yeah. Let's see, what else do I have on my list? Okay, so speaking of what really happens when we die is one of the,
Mhm,
topics, and we just touched on it a little bit.
mhm,
So, I've studied that a lot in different ways, and so I have, um, my theory that, based on what I've studied. So I'm curious, from your experience in communication with soul, have they, like you say, they can have a thought, but are there different stages they go through, or do they kind of stop and then come back,
mhm.
reincarnation, as, obviously you do believe in? What have you learned through the communications that you've had?
Well, that's what I talk about in angelic attendance. And again, if anybody wants a free copy, just go to askjulieryan.com and you'll see on the homepage. You just click on it and we'll send you a free digital and audiobook version. When my mother was dying in 2002, that was the first time, Desiree, that I'd ever been around anybody at the end of their lives. And I was in my mid 40s. And so I'd been studying woo woo for about 10 years. And I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. I'm going to turn on my radar and see if there's anything that I can see or perceive. Well, holy Moses. I mean, this whole series of events goes through. And I call it the 12 phases of transition. And it's how we're surrounded by deceased loved ones and their spirits and pet spirits, and also lots of angels as we're transitioning. I found it interesting that there is information on the afterlife, lots of information about near death experiences and even how to grieve, but not much out there available about what happens as we're actually dying. And that's what
Mhm.
people are afraid of.
Yeah.
especially in our Judeo-Christian culture, are we going to fly or are we going to fry?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah,
And
they think of all the wrong things they've done, and they're like, I'm sure that I need
yeah,
to start praying now.
I
Yeah,
know. I stole a cookie jar from the cookie jar. I stole a cookie
yeah,
from the cookie jar when I was 5. Am I going to go burn for eternity? No. Bottom line, everybody goes to heaven. All spirits go to heaven. There was a movie out in the 80s called All Dogs Go to Heaven. Well, all
yes.
people go to heaven too. And that's a big leap for most of us who've been taught about heaven and hell and all of that. But I've done this thousands and thousands of times, help people when they're transitioning, and so have my graduates. And I've been told thousands of times that hell doesn't exist. Hell is a creation to that has been used throughout the millennia to control the masses with fear.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so what happens is the spirit and the body, are holographic. They're all the same. And I went through 12 years of Catholic schools, Desiree. So I was taught the spirit of the soul is someplace in the chest area.
Yeah, the pictures of Jesus and Mary with the,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not what I perceive. What I perceive is that the spirit's the main part of us. It's our energy field, it's our aura, it's our, spirit. And the body's inside the spirit because the spirit is the power source for the body. And then it's enclosed in what I call the energy field membrane. So when somebody is dying, the spirit starts to detach from the body by going through a tunnel. A lot of NDEers talk about going through a tunnel or a vortex. And it attaches onto the top of the head. And it looks like a cartoon caption bubble, a
hmm,
speech bubble that the character is saying what they're thinking or whatever their words are. And the first spirit to show up and the one that runs the show is the closest maternal spirit to the person who's dying.
okay.
That surprised me a lot because when my mother was dying, my Meemaw, who had just died 6 months prior,
Oh,
she was there running the show. And I thought, really? I just imagined God had some, death and dying department in heaven. And it's like, okay, Mary Margaret's dying, so send her a bunch of angels down to Mississippi so we can help
yes.
her transition. That's not how it works, based on what I've witnessed literally tens of thousands of times. So the maternal spirit comes in first, then the paternal spirit comes in, and it's always on the maternal side. My dad's deceased. If my dad was still alive, it would be my maternal grandfather
Okay.
who would be running the show. And then phase 3, these big old angels show up. And they look like angels in the statuary in the artwork, by the European artists. Big wings, white gown, rope belt, bare feet, the whole 9 yards. It's important to note that that's how they perceive to me because that's how I was taught they look.
Yeah, I think that's
Somebody,
true, that everybody does experience
yeah,
them
right,
as their deities or their,
right.
look. Yeah.
Someone who grew up in the middle of the Amazon in an indigenous culture may see angel energy as just a ball of purple fog.
Hmm.
Spirits always going to show up how we can picture them. And then deceased loved ones spirits show up and pet spirits show up. The angels and the parental spirits anchor, let's say just for conversation's sake, our dying person is in a bed. So
Uh-huh.
they're going to surround them in a circle, and then that circle is going to open up into a horseshoe and eventually a straight line across the foot of the bed with the mother spirit running the show always.
Hmm.
Yeah, always. We think we're done with our kids when they grow up. We're running the
I'll tell my
demographic
kids
right.
that.
Yeah,
Guess what?
yeah, yeah. Be nice to me. You better be nice to me. No.
I'll be there.
And I'll
I'll,
have people say to me, "Oh, my mom was awful. She's the last person I'd want to be there." And I say, "That was a role she was playing. Her spirit is pure love. Everybody goes to heaven. So when you get to heaven and you run into her, you can give her an Academy Award and say, 'Mom, you deserved an Oscar for your performance because it was terrible. You were terrible, as a human.'" So there's that. And then a couple of nuances, if I may share. that happen in the 12 phases. Everybody goes through the 12 phases of transition, regardless of if they die instantly, like in the case of a homicide or suicide, or if they die over a prolonged period of time of days, weeks, months, even year. Because remember, time doesn't exist in the spirit world, time's a
Mhm.
human creation. So, about phase five ish, there are two additional angels that show up, Desiree, and they're on either side of the spirit bubble. And when that happened with my mom, I thought, this is going to be interesting. I wonder, I knew they'd play a role, but I didn't know what role they would play. And at this point, I felt like the Lady of Justice balance statue. Because on
Okay.
one side, my heart was breaking, and on the other side, I'm seeing all this glorious stuff happening. And it really helped balance the heartbreak because she was dying very suddenly. It was
Mm.
not expected. And about those angels on either side of the spirit bubble, between phase 9 and 10, their wings start to move. And it reminded me of a giant owl. Have you ever seen a giant owl fly or perhaps
Oh,
seen
uh-huh.
a
Yeah, especially
documentary?
coming in for a little cat in the field. Yeah.
Exactly. Like a little bunny or something.
Yeah.
And their wings are silent, but you can almost feel how powerful they are and that it creates a drag underneath them.
Hmm.
So when I was writing angelic attendants, I thought, this is interesting because when I watched the angel's wings move with my mother as she was dying, they formed a vortex above my mother's head. And I thought, I'll bet that's how the spirit's going to detach from her body. And that's in fact what happened. So when I was writing angelic attendants, I just did an internet search. I did wings owl vortex. Well, come to find out, there's this phenomenon, an aeronautical engineering phenomenon called the wingtip vortex,
Oh.
which everything that flies, it's how the air goes over and under the wings and it creates a vortex underneath the wings and it causes lift. So every jet, every plane, every bird, every bug, every kite has the wingtip vortex helping it ascend. And if you do an internet search on wingtip vortex, which every pilot knows about, you will see tens of thousands of illustrations and pictures and articles and whatever about the wingtip vortex. So I thought, wow, that's something happening in the spirit world that I can see, feel, and hear in my human
Mhm.
world. And it reminds me of going through the car wash at the end, when they turn the dryer on and it's sucking all the water off your car. Yeah, that's what it reminded me of. So that happened. And then those angels escort that person to heaven. And heaven looks like this big plasma wall. And you go through it and there's no trace that you've gone through it or any kind of hole. And all the deceased loved ones that were in the person's room as they were dying, they're all on the other side waiting. And when somebody goes through the pearly gates, I can hear a roar, like in a big football stadium when somebody scores a touchdown. I can hear it when they arrive. It's
Reminds
really,
me of a jumbotron as
yeah, probably,
as somebody's
probably.
coming through.
Yeah, yeah. I had a client one time and we were talking to her dad's spirit in heaven, and he said, it was great. It was like a magic trick because one minute they're in my room with me, and the next minute I get to heaven and they're all there too. He said it was like the magician putting the girl in the box and turning it
Oh,
around and tapping on it a few times with this magic wand, and she disappears and then he brings her back. So
yeah.
that was really interesting. Interesting point about the 12 phases of transition. When my mother's funeral mass was happening,
Hmm.
at the end of every Roman Catholic funeral, there's a prayer said or sung called In Paradisum, which in Latin translates to English of into paradise. And it
Hmm.
talks about your loved ones, and the angels will greet you and lead you into paradise. So I had heard that prayer many, many, many times over my lifetime, but I really heard it at my mom's funeral. And I thought, good heavens, I just watched all that happen.
Hmm.
So when I was writing the book, I did a little research to find out where did that prayer begin. And I learned that it originated as a 5th century Gregorian chant. And I thought, well, perhaps it took till the 5th century till somebody was well educated enough that they could read and write. And certainly those people were men, many of whom lived in monasteries and synagogues. They were the scribes.
Yeah.
And so I envisioned some little monk writing down that prayer. And I think people have been able to see this since the beginning of time.
Mhm.
And perhaps it just took till the 5th century till somebody could write it down. So it's been really an interesting experience for me over all these years since my mom died in 2002 to see it really tens of thousands of times and know that everybody goes through the 12 phases of what I call the 12 phases of transition.
Mhm.
As luck would have it, a book was published the following year, and it's called Death is But a Dream. And it's a research project done by an MD, PhD. Chris Kerr is his name. And the University of Buffalo is where they did the research. And they found that 90% of people see the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets at the end of their lives. 90%. So when we think grandma's hallucinating from the morphine that hospice
Yeah.
has given her, no, she's not. She can actually see her deceased mother's spirit and communicate with her spirit, even though she's been dead for 40 years.
There are videos of this. I saw it with my sister, um, and a little bit with my mom before she died, that they're laying in bed and maybe reaching out
Yeah.
for for something or somebody, you know, the and
Look of wonder. Yeah.
another thing that's common, which is interesting, is women in particular will ask for their purse. Like they may be out of it, but they'll start asking for their purse or for their overnight bag or for their,
Yeah.
because there's like some conscious part of them that knows they're going to be going on a trip.
Julie.
And so the logical, earthbound person thinks, oh, I need to get my purse. I'm going now.
Mhm.
There are some just interesting, really fascinating stories about that, you know,
Uh-huh.
transfer that happens. And it's not a scary thing.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. In every critical care provider and every hospice person and funeral directors. I mean, they all have stories
Mhm.
like the one that you just shared of people who are loved ones whose spirits are there. May I share the story about how the book came about? It's kind of a
Please. Yeah.
fun story. I was with my mentor one day, Desiree, and she was doing a healing on me. And my deceased loved one's spirits are in the room when a healing is happening on me. Even my late dog, Katie, she's on her back legs and her little paws are up on the table and she's participating in the healing. Well, one day this spirit of this dead Pope shows up. And I said, well, who are you? He had his Pope hat on and his shepherd's rod and the whole 9 yards. And he said, I'm Clement. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I'm so sorry. I never heard of a Pope Clement.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
embarrassing. He said, well, I was number 6. He was laughing. He said I was number 6. And my mentor, Susan, could hear him and see him too. And I said, great. How may I help you? And I'm thinking, why are you here? And he said, you're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies because it's been so bastardized over all the millennia and you know what happens and it's glorious. So you just need to teach the world. And I said, gosh, I really appreciate your thoughts on that. But you see, I'm a businesswoman. And if I do that, people will think I'm nuts. So I'm really not interested, but thanks for stopping by. And he laughed and he said, yeah, yeah, yeah. Whatever, everything you've done in your career has prepared you for this. You just need to get on it. He treats me like a Nike and he says, just do it. I said, yeah, again, I'm not interested, but thank you so much. So I
Mhm.
get in my car to leave a few minutes later, Desiree, and I on my phone, I'm looking up Pope Clement the Sixth.
Uh-huh.
Come to find out this guy was in office during the Black Plague.
Oh,
He's best known for his prayers for the dead and his prayers for the dying. And I thought, Ryan, you can't make that up. And
right.
so it was a couple of years, and I was like, yeah, yeah, whatever. I was running my companies, doing the wife, mom, grandma thing, all of that. And one Sunday, I'm in church between my son and my husband, and the priest from the altar in his sermon says, "Wouldn't it be nice if somebody could really tell us if we fly or we fry when we die?" And I thought, he went on to say, "Do the angels and our loved ones really greet us and lead us into paradise like the prayer?" And I'm getting elbowed from my husband and my son on either side of me. And I thought, really, God, you're giving me grief from the altar, from the pulpit here
Yeah,
about this? Okay, 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 I'll do it. And then I thought, all right, so I'm going to write this book. I'm going to put it out. I'm going to have a website and all that. I hope this doesn't affect my businesses. A few weeks later, website's up, book's been released. I'm speaking at a business conference of C-suite executives, pretty good sized one, mostly men in the audience. And at the end of my business talk, this guy comes up and he's got his iPad open and he said, "Is this you?" He's on AskJulieRyan.com. And
not
I'm thinking,
that
oh,
weirdo. No.
here's my picture. Yeah, that's me. And he said, "I'd like to know more about this. Can we sit together at lunch?" And I'm smiling. I'm saying, "Sure." And I'm thinking, oh, great. I'm going to get nailed for an hour at lunch. Well, long story short, I sat with him and seven other men at lunch, and all they wanted to talk about was woo woo. They didn't want to talk about the conference, business stuff, my talk, none of it. It was just all what happens when somebody dies? Can you really communicate with somebody? All this other stuff. And I just said, okay, okay, I'm in. And that's how all this came about.
That's right. And I find, we are, especially when we have experiences or thoughts, uh, like, we do. And a lot of times I don't want to bring them up with somebody. It's almost like politics. You're afraid they're going to go, "Oh, you're weird." But
Yeah.
I had a similar experience. Made a new friend, and we're talking, and everything. She seems very normal, and she says, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm a hypnotherapist, and yeah, I also do this and that." And she goes, "Oh, really? You do past life regressions?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And she goes, "Oh, I had one done. It was great." And then she's like, just wanted to know more and more and talked about her experience. And then we kind of go down the rabbit hole of all the books she's read about that. But she's just a professional young, woman in Washington, D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
who, you don't know what people are interested in. And it's the type of thing, it's like, that you need the secret handshake or something like, wink, wink, you too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then other people, I said, I was talking about not even this so much, but some rabbit hole stuff, and I wasn't going too deep yet. Then I just simply brought up the book Chaos, if you're familiar with that book. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I had just finished reading this book, and wow, it's fascinating the stuff that was actually going on around." I said it was like there was MK Ultra and there was the CIA. And this woman looks at me and she goes, I have to go pick up my daughter." And I said, "Uh-oh, whoops, went too far, lost one." But you never know when you're going to, it's almost like find a match for somebody who doesn't think you're crazy,
Yeah.
um, or has heard of certain things or never heard of anything, and they'll just dismiss you. So yeah, I think we just need to say it, right? Like you say, just do it. Like Clement said, just do it. Just be open, talk about it, and that's what I love doing on here. It's my little vehicle for inviting people to talk
Mhm.
like you,
Mhm.
and telling people that, yeah, there's this stuff is not made up; it's real. And especially when I can have someone who's had personal experiences like you, and especially so grateful to know that you're out there teaching this to people.
Well, everybody's been doing this since the beginning of time, and it's just been in the past, I would say 100 years, maybe even less, where people have said, "Oh, you got to prove it to me." And I
Yeah.
think it's because we've become more well educated and more literate, most of us now.
Mhm.
Whereas these traditions in every culture talks
Yes.
about angels and ancestors and talking with spirits and stuff like that. And then we've wanted to be in a place where we need to see proof of it. Well, you ask for proof, proof's
Yes.
going to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if people are open to it. And things like Dr. Emoto with intention and his experiments with water, and other people have carried
Mhm.
that forward. Just really fascinating stuff. That people, but if you'll look him up on Wikipedia, it'll throw him under the bus and say, oh, you know, whatever, say things that demean his work. And so there's a lot out there that actually now is being researched, even more and more evidence for
Mhm.
the people that need hard evidence
Mhm.
instead of just experiential or their own their own evidence, but they need somebody else to say it's true. So, but it's getting closer. So we're kind of at the end of our time. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience? I will have your details. I'll have Julie's details down in the description, how to get her book for free and how to reach you. But anything else you want to make sure that the audience knows?
Well, most of the work that I do is healing in nature with the
Awesome.
energy healing. I'm like a human MRI and I can see inside people's bodies with their permission. You mentioned that at the beginning. And
Mhm.
so that's most of the work that I do. So I can see torn ligaments, broken bones, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer, whatever. And then energetic healing, facilitate energetic healing to help the person heal themselves. Because, of course, nobody ever heals anybody else. If you have a big cut on your leg and you go to the doctor to get it stitched up, well, the doctor doesn't make your skin grow back. You make your own skin grow back.
Mhm.
And that's how this works. So the work that I do with the healing, which is really what brought me into all of this at the very beginning, I find that it's part of the healing equation. You got Western medicine, Eastern medicine, homeopathic, energy medicine, whatever. And it all comes together to help the person heal. So that's fun. Everything's at Ask Julie Ryan, askjulieryan.com, Ask Julie Ryan on all the socials. We have 5 YouTube channels, and they're in English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and German. We have the shows dubbed, and then we're on all the podcast networks as well. Everything's at Ask Julie Ryan. We do 2 interview shows we release a week, and then we do a live call-in show every Thursday night at 8 Eastern. Now, we're not going to do it this week because it's Thanksgiving, but normally we'll do a call-in show every Thursday night. It's a blast, Desiree, because
Yeah,
I never know who's calling. They call in from all over the world, and we can talk to your dead grandma. We can scan your cat. We can scan you, do a
that's awesome.
healing. We can do past lives. We can talk to your angels and your guides. We can tell how close to death somebody is. So it goes very fast and it's really a lot of fun.
So how
So
do people
ask
reach the
Ryan.
call-in show?
Pardon me?
How do people reach the call-in show?
AskJulieRyan.com. All the information's there. It's on all my socials too, but you can call in on AskJulieRyanShow.com and be on camera and have a conversation with me. Or a lot of people come in through the YouTube live stream
All
and they'll
right.
put their question in the chat and we take questions from both. I give away free classes, I give away free sessions with me all
Fun.
the time. I do a live the fourth Tuesday of the month. Again, give away free classes and sessions. People can submit a question online. I answer that in my blog. I mean, there's lots and lots of ways to get your questions answered. If you want an hour session with me, you can do that. I have 5 graduates that work with me, and people can get in to see them usually quicker and less expensively than they can with me. But I needed to add more people just because there are only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And they're all wonderful. They're all graduates of my class. So have
Fantastic.
online self-paced training as well. with live practice groups. So it's a lot. There's a lot going on. My eighth book is coming out in a couple of weeks. And so we have a phone app that's going to be released soon where you can submit a question on a video on, on the phone and
Mhm.
I'll answer it. So lots going on and
Love it.
askjulieryan.com.
I love it. And I think you're just a wealth of information, as you say, a psychic, was that a buffet, was it? Or
Buffet of psychicness. Yeah,
yeah. And I'm going to look at some of your classes too, because I always love learning from a new perspective and just
absolutely.
adding it to the soup. So I might check that out
Agree. I
and
agree. We'd love to have you.
check out all your books. So I just appreciate you being here. And like I said, everybody, details, go down there and come check her out with me. And thanks for being my guest. So I'll say goodbye for now and see everybody next time.
Bye, everybody.